Hello, I am Jared Weiss,
And I'm Alex Benson.
and we are Ethereal Sunrise. Thank you so much for checking out another one of these videos where Alex and I sit around and talk about ourselves. This
Hmm.
time we're talking about Not Done Yet, the fourth song from the album Steady as Rock that we put out on the 20th. You can find the song, the album, all the major music download and streaming platforms. And you can find links to those on our social media pages: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Um, I will just start off by saying that yes, we did joke about 100,000 times about the song not being done yet during the many iterations of recording, re-recording, mixing, remixing, screaming at the wall in frustration, mixing again. Um, and I just have to say, Alex, it is delightful. Just very, very satisfying to me that the song is actually done. How do you feel about it? Looking at it in its completed form.
Well, I have this specter in my head that maybe it's not quite done yet. Um, but yeah, this song was very challenging in a lot of ways. So this was the actually the first of my individual compositions I had written for this album, and so when I was starting to think about, well, what sorts of songs do I want to write for this album? So the main thing that was different about this project versus just what maybe I would normally would be doing was that uh, there was a second singer. And so I wanted to be able to fully capitalize on the notion that we had two voices and could be using uh, two voices in opposition or together or to be able to play around with that. So I knew from the get-go, before I had written anything, that I was going to be wanting to do something that was going to be sort of having two singers doing something that was in contrast. The other sort of strange thing I did in writing the song was I actually wrote the entire song on the flute. So every single part that was on the album was or on the song rather, it was originally played on the flute, and then I transposed it onto other instruments. There were major influences from like UK and Asia on this song, and wanting to have that kind of like this uh, triumphant, heroic section. And there were also a lot of influences from Arion, which is Arjen Lucasen's sort of sprawling progressive rock opera project. And so there was a lot of influence of that as well in terms of how the song wound up coming together. And I knew I wanted to sort of engage or indulge, as you were, into the sort of more progressive elements and the sort of stranger kind of time signatures. I didn't intentionally have it shift quite as often as it wound up shifting. But as I kept coming up with each section, I was like, oh, that's a different time signature. That's a different time signature. And so it is very much a kind of um, it has a lot of those changes that really kind of add a lot of excitement to the song and also add sort of this element of kind of danger to it. And so, with that main riff that is throughout most of the song, um, it has this really kind of aggressive edge to it. And then it sort of shifts to these other sections that are maybe a little bit more light or a little bit more heroic. But it wound up being that the actual composition itself really kind of dictated in terms of where the lyrics wound up going. That I just sort of I would listen to that riff, that main riff. And I'd be like, what do I feel from this riff? This sort of alternating rhythm. It really generates a sense of panic almost, that with the sense that you can't even just sort of like sit with it. And so that wound up being kind of part of the basis from the lyrical perspective. Of just what do I actually viscerally feel while listening to this music. And I think in general the lyrics very much do follow that it's the lyrics are more supportive when it's lighter, and they're more kind of harsh when it's harsher music, and it's more heroic when the music's more heroic sounding. um, and so I wound up structuring it so that it was sort of two um, vocalists playing off of each other. So it's kind of there's the demon on the one shoulder, and then there's the angel on the other shoulder throughout the verses. They're sort of battling as kind of the negative and positive voices for the protagonists, and then in the chorus, it really more changes to actually being the kind of protagonist's perspective of sort of dealing with whatever struggle that is that they're dealing with. The other fun thing for me was I knew this was going to be one of the heavier songs on the album, and between the two of us, I usually have a more kind of heavy aesthetic. Um, and so I thought, how hilarious would it be to get Jared to do the majority of the guitars on this song, and to sort of see how he would approach, doing really heavy, aggressive guitar works. I don't know if you want that.
Sure. What I have traditionally thought of myself as more of a rhythm guitarist than a lead guitarist. I think that just stems from growing up playing guitar with my younger brother. He tended to have a better feel for what to do with lead guitar, maybe a little more instinctively, and I would maybe have to think about it more. And I think that kind of um, maybe kneecapped my ability to really just put together good improvised solos as readily. Whereas I feel I had a very good sense for rhythm guitar. Different patterns of strumming, different. I could really get the most out of just a chord chart. Um, so this was different for me in some respects. Some of the more chordal patterns, like when I'm doing the power chords, it was very easy actually for me to dig into the pretty quick, strumming patterns, just because I've done a lot of that and even more folky type, acoustic guitar work, things like that. So that actually translated pretty well for me. Um, then there are all these composed lead lines that sneak their way in there. Um,
You're
that
welcome.
Yeah, thanks again for that. Like with everything, practice makes it, better, and hopefully one day perfect. So it took a lot of practice to get some of those lines down, in terms of upstrokes, downstrokes in the pick, to not get lost as you're kind of crossing strings. Um, it was a lot of fun though, and really getting to dig into a type of tone I didn't usually play around with in my own work was very exciting. Um, it was all composed excepting for the brief solo after the second chorus. I had been fiddling around with the uh, uh, slide guitar a little bit for this album. By this time, I think we'd probably written the core parts of "A Soft Rain," the final song on the album, which utilizes the slide a lot. And I was thinking about like George Thorogood's, solos, for example, which kind of have this heavy, almost meathead bluesy energy, with the distorted tone. And I was like, maybe there's something there. Um, so I kind of kicked it off with a kind of George Thorogood type riff, this very fast slide into this rapid alternating high E string, B string, the one and the five pattern. I just built the solo off of that. The whole thing is like 10 seconds long actually when you listen to it, because it's just very fast tempo. But I think it really adds a kick coming out of that second chorus that I'm very proud of. And it does contrast nicely, I think, with a lot of the guitar work elsewhere on the album. So that was fun.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, this whole song is definitely a pretty large shot of adrenaline.
yes.
And it is kind of a nice compliment to Lady Picasso, in that with Lady Picasso, it's stretching out into sort of increasingly unstable territory. Whereas with this song, it sort of, after that peaceful intro, it sort of hits you with being kind of all over the place. But the truth is, after that first chorus, you already know all the song, and so as the song progresses, everything actually starts feeling more familiar, and it's sort of the inverse effect, where it sort of starts kind of unstable and all over the place, and it progressively, from a lyrical perspective, the voices sort of start as far apart as can be, and then they become, much more together. so that by the end there is kind of like this sense of a heroic triumph by the climax of the song.
Right. I mean, I think one of the reasons why this song is so good, in my view, I think even the prog musicians that you and I both love, Alex, at times are guilty of musical complexity just for the sake of musical complexity, shifting signatures, time signatures, shifting keys, shifting feels for its own sake, maybe more than anything else. And if those segments are musically rewarding, then that's fine. That's good, even. But you marry those transitions so well to the lyrics, and that it never feels purposeless. Which I really enjoy. I also, just speaking about the lyrics and the vocals, I enjoy. I mean, I think the back and forth between the two of us, especially in the choruses, is very well done. It's definitely something I think you were better at, kind of doing the call and response type vocal approach in the album. We see it again on "Sold My Soul," which you wrote the lyrics for. Um, but it was also fun for me just because I got to play with vocal tones that I don't usually do. So I end up in the choruses, especially, I'm almost barking the first word of each line, which gives my vocal tone a much harder edge than it usually has. And it's still fun for me to hear, and be like, wow, that's me. I sound kind of aggressive almost, which is not my usual vocal approach. Um, so I think in a lot of ways you wrangled a lot of chaos in this one into something remarkably uh, coherent, synthesizing sort of our unique voices, but also pushing them into territories they don't usually go, to great effect. And again, I think it's why it's probably my favorite of your songs on the album.
Well, thank you. And yeah, I think this might be a song where, for some folks they might need to listen to it a few times, start really sinking in, because I think that first time can be sort of like, wait, what's happening?
Right.
But I definitely think it's one that rewards repeated listening.
Right. The lyrics come at you very fast, especially your lyrics in the A sections, Alex. It's one where people might enjoy listening while looking at the lyrics, which are posted on our Bandcamp page. All the songs have the lyrics posted. Somewhere else too, I copied and pasted lyrics. I don't know if it was SoundCloud, but you could always go hunting through all of our pages to try and figure out where else we have the lyrics posted. Because I think it enriches the experience with this one. Any other thoughts you have to add, Alex?
I think we've probably talked everyone's ear off at this point.
Right, and everyone would probably be glad to hear that we are indeed done with this discussion.
That's
Uh,
right.
um, so thank you for listening. Again, you can check out the music on all of our accounts and all the major music download and streaming platforms. I'm going to start hearing that phrase in my dreams: music download and streaming platforms. And keep an eye out for further videos. And I'm Jared Weiss.
And I'm Alex Benson.
And we are Ethereal Sunrise. Take care, everyone.